Bullet Witch is a third-person shooter that originally came out for the Xbox 360 back in 2006. The plot of Bullet Witch is simple. After a mysterious man hurls himself into a pit in a forest, numerous natural disasters begin to rock the world as a demon invasion occurs. In 2007, the Earth has become a wasteland, and by 2013, humanity is on the brink of extinction. Funny, I don't remember that happening 5 years ago. It's at this point that the witch, Alicia Klaus, appears in order to help the surviving citizens of a ruined city, and to drive out the demon menace once and for all. This is also where the actual game begins, and you get your first taste of how it all works, along with some crappy voice acting to go with the B-movie level plot. Although, sadly, the acting isn't Resident Evil level bad. I guess you can't always get what you want, right? Right off the bat, you can tell that this game didn't have much of a budget to go around. And after finding out that this was made by Cavia, creators of Drakengard and the same team as the Ghost in the Shell PS2 game, everything makes a whole lot of sense. Poor old Cavia, they always came in with big ideas, but tiny, tiny budgets. The maps of Bullet Witch are fairly large, but they aren't very pretty to look at, and all of them are fairly linear. If you see any buildings or potential alternate paths, 9 times out of 10 you aren't going to be able to use them. A friend pointed out that the game looks quite a bit like a Unity asset swap, and that's definitely kinda accurate. Although, to be fair to Bullet Witch, a lot of early 360 games were not beautiful to look at. The game also uses the tried and true mechanic of locking off parts of the map and forcing you to kill a certain enemy to unlock the path forward. I really hate it when games rely on this, as it's quite tedious and blatantly used to extend the time to completion. While Bullet Witch does rely on it too heavily for its second level, which is really boring, it becomes something used much more sparingly later on. Another area you can see the budgetary issues arise is with the enemies. While their designs are pretty cool, the main soldiers look appropriately ghoulish, and these zombie things are horrifying. There just aren't that many different ones. Off the top of my head, I can think of maybe 4 or 5 enemy types, which is somewhat masked by changing small pieces of them. The soldiers will wear different types of gear as you progress, for example, but it's definitely something you will notice. The enemy AI is another area where you can see the corners having to be cut. None of the enemies are particularly smart, and all of them react and move in very basic patterns. In order to make the game harder, the devs added in quite a lot of enemies that mob you, and a few that can kill you in one hit. While I'm totally okay with the large enemy count, I really could have done without the one-hit kills. Restarting after a game over isn't so bad as it's quick and levels are loaded with checkpoints, but instant kills are the most infuriating things any game can have. Please don't do them. Now, the controls are definitely a spot where some money and effort was expended, as controlling Alicia feels pretty good. The over-the-shoulder third-person view works well, and the ability to zoom in on enemies is a nice touch. I would have liked a dash button, as sometimes the running speed feels way too slow on the bigger maps, but running around is smooth, and the dodging also works great. Bullet Witch also has another major fighting mechanic, and that is the use of Alicia's witch magic. Bringing up the magic wheel allows you to flip through and cast any unlocked spell with a single press of a button. Oddly, the latest PC release of the game will lock your camera down in place while casting, while the original 360 version allowed for free camera control during these sequences. It's really kind of a nitpick, as neither version allowed Alicia herself to move, but it was something I noticed other reviewers were annoyed by, so I thought it was worth mentioning. As you play through the game, you earn points that can be used to level up your character, your magic, and your guns. All of it is fairly straightforward, as you choose an existing attribute to increase, or you can choose to unlock a new spell or gun. Like everything else in the game, it's not particularly fleshed out or deep, but it does the job it needs to. Coming back to the recent PC release, it's actually quite a competent port. Everything works as it should, and while the graphics aren't gorgeous, they never were after all, it runs very well in HD resolutions. It's kind of odd to see a good PC port of a game like this, when major, much more popular games haven't gotten them. But hey, I'm not gonna complain about it. After all of that, you might be thinking that this game isn't really worth your time, but this one has garnered a bit of a cult following since its release, and has many likable elements despite its shortcomings. Bullet Witch might be a janky, launch title level game, but its fun combat, silly B-movie plot, and interesting enemy designs keep it from falling into obscurity forever. The fact that you can find it for dirt cheap on the 360 and affordably on Steam makes it worth trying at least once. I can't say for sure that you'll love it, but you never know.